Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. And what a day we have for this incredible event. We're so glad that you could join us on this momentous day for the University of Texas at El Paso, as well as the entire El Paso community. Today, we add a new chapter to legendary Coach Don Haskins' storied legacy here at UTEP. For over a quarter century, the arena behind me has borne the name of the man who led the Miners to 719 wins and, of course, the historic 1966 National Championship. But now, when fans visit this iconic venue and enter through the East Concourse, they will have the pleasure of being greeted by the Bear himself, crumpled program in hand, barking, and I do mean barking, at the officials and leading his team, of course, to victory. Through the generosity of Joanne and Dan Longoria and the supreme craftsmanship of sculptor Brian Hanlon, Coach Haskins will be immortalized forever outside this arena that bears his name. A landmark day for UTEP and El Paso, indeed. We look forward to celebrating Coach all weekend with some of his greatest players in attendance and the 40th anniversary reunion of one of his best teams, the 83-84 Miners. And as Jeff Darby pointed out, we've got all sorts of generations of UTEP Miners from the very start in the 1960s right up until the present. I want to acknowledge several people who are with us here today and thank them for joining us. State Senator Cesar Blanco is here today. Senator Blanco, thank you for being with us. City Representatives Cassandra Hernandez, Chris Canales, and Art Fierro, thank you so much for being here and joining us today. I'd like to begin today's press conference by inviting the 11th president of the University of Texas at El Paso to the podium. She came to the Sun City in 2019 after serving as the Secretary of the United States Air Force. And under her leadership, UTEP has continued its upward trajectory, ranking among the top 5% of universities in the country for research and one of the top 11 top-tier research universities in the state of Texas. Please welcome UTEP President Heather Wilson.
John, thank you very much. You know, it is great to be here today with so many people who loved Don Haskins and whose lives he changed. I want to particularly recognize his family. We have 10 family members here with us today, including his wife, Mary, and his sons, Steve and Brent. I wonder if you'd go ahead and, where's family members, go ahead and stand up if you would. There you go. It's okay, Mary. Thank you so much for joining us. As John mentioned, we also have a number of players here who Don Haskins coached. The 1983-84 team is here celebrating their 40th reunion. And we have players from every decade that he coached, including members of the 1966 team. If you were a player for Don Haskins, you want to give us a wave. I think we have two former NBA players here. Antonio Davis and Tim Hardaway, I understand, is here. He's probably signing autographs. There we go. There we go. As well as we have a legendary basketball official here. Bobby Deibler is here, I think. And there are also 10 players here who scored more than 1,000 points during their basketball careers, no doubt with the support of a coach who pushed them to be their very best. 1,000 points in a career. Congratulations and thank you. You know, I know you're all excited to see this new statue, which is based on a photograph taken by photojournalist Brian Kanoff, who is also here today. Where'd Brian go? There's Brian. Brian captured the essence of the Bears coaching style. Thank you. And thank you for allowing us to memorialize it. There's another Brian Hanlon, who took that photo and turned it into the piece we're going to see here today. And we'll do the big unveiling in just a few minutes. Before we do that unveiling, I wanted to personally thank Dan and Joanne Longoria. This monument would not have been possible without your generosity. It is so wonderful to be able to celebrate Don Haskins' legacy here in front of the building named for him, and where we mourned his passing. Today, it's where we enjoy music and art and still play some great basketball. There are a lot of people here who knew Don Haskins well. They remember him as a person, a coach, a father, and a husband. He didn't set out to make history, but history will remember him long after those who knew him personally are gone, because of the choices that he made, the choices that changed college athletics in this country. He helped to change America. He made the decision to recruit players based on their skill and potential and not because of the color of their skin. He coached them and pushed them. And in 1966, he did what he had always done. He put his best players on the court for that national championship game against the University of Kentucky and won. I think it's hard for students today to understand what was happening on college campuses at that time. UTEP had been desegregated by a court case in 1955, a year after Brown versus Board of Education desegregated K-12 education. There was a lawsuit here in El Paso that desegregated universities in the state of Texas. It was 7 years later, in 1962, when the seniors of that Glory Road team were just freshmen, 1962, that a man named James Meredith became the first black student to enroll at the University of Mississippi in the face of segregationist rioters put down by federal troops. When those Glory Road basketball players were freshmen. That was happening in Mississippi. And in June of 1963, at the end of their freshman year, the federal district court ordered the University of Alabama to desegregate. And over the objection of Governor George Wallace, the president federalized the National Guard and integrated the University of Alabama. That's what was going on American college campuses. You know, when children study the civil rights era in American history class, they see pictures of violence in Alabama and Mississippi. They don't see, usually, Don Haskins recruiting and coaching a team from Texas Western based on skill. And when he won that national championship and brought it here to El Paso, other coaches followed his example. And the NCAA was desegregated because of Don Haskins. And the neat thing about him is he never would have claimed that. We honor him today as a coach and also as a man who chose a different path and helped to change America. Thank you all for being here. Long live the Bear, and go Miners.
Thank you, President Wilson. Could the weather have broken any better for us today for this ceremony? Just fabulous. The statue of the bear is a gift, as President Wilson pointed out, from Joanne and Dan Longoria, influential members of the El Paso community for over a quarter century. Dan and Joanne have been committed to community involvement over the last 25 years in El Paso through organizations such as the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, the El Paso Symphony Orchestra, the El Paso del Norte Foundation, the Borderplex, and Children at Risk, just to name a few. I'd like to invite Dan and Joanne to the podium to say a few words. Dan, Joanne.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you, President Wilson. Standing here today alongside the Haskins family, the sculptor, world-renowned sculptor Brian Hanlon, an esteemed guest, we are reminded of the importance of giving back and preserving the stories that proudly shape our collective identity. This day has a special significance as it reflects a deep-rooted desire and commitment to the El Paso community. Coach Haskins' courageous actions in championing racial equality extended far beyond the basketball court. He broke down barriers and set new standards for our country, changing the game of basketball forever. His actions resonate now more than ever in our country. And this legacy serves as a reminder of the power of determination and integrity in effecting positive change. It is our hope that this statue will stand as a beacon of inspiration for generations to come. Thank you all for joining us for this momentous occasion.
Okay. Well, what a day. It's kind of emotional today to stand here in front of all of you that have had so many more experiences than we have with Coach Haskins. Over the 25 years that we've been here, the stories have just been incredible. We're so grateful to be able to do this for the Haskins family, for UTEP, and for the community that loved him. Again, it was an emotional day just thinking about us being able to donate a statue. I'm sorry. I mean, that was pretty amazing for us. And so, again, our gratitude, and thank you all for being here today, because it just, I mean, I can't imagine what it feels like to some of you that have had, you know, as I look at Jim Bowden that played for him, and a lot of people here that did. And so this has to be an incredible moment also for UTEP and everybody that had a hand in putting this together. Jim Center, Dr. Wilson, thank you. Brian Hanlon, you guys wait till you see this statue. I saw the face of it for 5 minutes and it gave me chills. It's an incredible, so Brian Hanlon, thank you so much for that. So I'll read what I put together. Joanne and I are happy to stand here with you today as we witness the realization of a dream that began over a decade ago. When Joanne and I came to El Paso over 20 years ago, this is funny, we were a sponsor for a basketball game, and we were presented with the game balls signed by the bear himself. Now keep in mind we had just arrived in El Paso, so please don't crucify me for simply throwing the ball in the back of my trunk and driving around with it for a few months and then finally giving it to a kid at our company Christmas party. Matter of fact, I was running a store back then, too, so I had to close the store, come do the basketball game, and go back. But it was shortly after that I learned Coach Haskins' story and what it meant to this community, basketball and racial equality as a whole, and quickly thought, I need that ball back. So it's truly humbling then, now, to see Coach Don Haskins immortalized in bronze, standing tall, outside the arena that bears his name. Coach Haskins was more than just a basketball coach. He was a symbol of determination, integrity, and excellence. His legacy has impacted countless lives, and we are all grateful for the opportunity to contribute to preserving his memory for generations to come. The journey to bring this iconic statue of Coach Don Haskins to life has been nothing short of extraordinary, and it's here now. Incredible. We are deeply grateful to be a part of this project, which not only honors Coach Haskins, but also celebrates the rich history and spirit of El Paso, Texas. And in case you're wondering, no, I never did get that ball back. But somewhere, that kid has a nice piece of history. And now today, every El Pasoan will have a piece of history also. Thank you very much. All right. Ready? Okay.
Dan and Joanne, thank you. Thank you so much. As has already been mentioned, the Bear statue is the work of classically trained master sculptor Brian Hanlon. Hanlon has crafted over 600 public and private art pieces since 1986. His primary goal is to inspire and educate through his transformative art. Hanlon's studio is the official sculptor for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame and the Rose Bowl Stadium, and Brian was rattling off to me. It's kind of a who's who at some of the figures that he has sculpted. Recognized with national awards, Hanlon's versatility shines through in his figurative, civic, and athletic sculptures, leaving an enduring impact on the cultural landscape. Please welcome to the Sun City, El Paso, and UTEP, Brian Hanlon.
Ooh, I was very casual and light earlier, and now I'm feeling the heaviness of the moment. Thank you so much for that introduction, and it is an absolute honor to be here. I was the sculptor at the Basketball Hall of Fame 25 years, and I learned so much. I had a front row seat to learning about basketball history, which I truly love. And one year, is it 06 or 07? The team went in, 66 team, 06. I'm sitting in there, and honestly, as Dan was honest with the ball story, I really didn't even know anything about the team. But I learned so much each year, the people that would go in, and it really got to me, learning about, and some of the guys were there, this gentleman was there, and I got some stories, and I learned about Coach, and then I came to town, and I went to the Haskin household, because I was a little remiss that when you go in the Hall of Fame, you get a spire. And the Hall wasn't going to give everybody on the team a spire, so I came to town and went to the Haskin house and gave all the team members spires on my own because I was so moved by the story and learning about Coach Haskin and his courage and his character was overwhelming. So I felt like I had to do something. And there on that trip, I met Steve Yellen. Is Steve here? Yellen, there he is. Steve, wave over there. Hey, Steve. And, and Steve Haskins, too. And we came up with this crazy idea. Maybe we should do a statue. Joe, too, was a part of that idea. Is Joe here? Yes, right over there. And that was a long time. Is it 15 years? I don't think I've ever, and I've 600 pieces around the country, have ever waited 15 years for a dedication. And it's so worth it because I think the story has just gotten better and better and better. And during the pandemic, or as it evolved, Steve Kapowitz gave me a call and became the Bob Cousy of this whole, the point guard of this whole project here. And Jim couldn't have been a better leader for helping us get this done. And I know your leadership and Heather, and right place, right time. And it is absolutely surreal that we're standing here unveiling this. I've been able and fortunate to do statues of great basketball coaches, football coaches, and it probably is my favorite subject matter because of the difficulty of their job and their character. Some are screamers, some are not. They all have their own style, but they win championships. And I say that because we were just talking to UConn this week about a statue of Jim Calhoun. And if you've ever sit behind a UConn bench, it is the loudest scream you're ever going to hear in your life. But, you know, they won 3 championships with him. So, and then Jerry Tarkanian in the Running Rebels, one of the great NCAA stories. And that's what gets me about these statues is the backstory. And I think Don's story is one of the most remarkably spiritually fit, intellectually fit story we have in NCAA history. And that's why I'm proud of doing this historical marker. To me, it's more than art because it has this perpetuating, beautiful story of history, which is both spiritually and intellectually fit. And when you look at this statue, please understand the backdrop that I've also done. And does anyone know who Earl Lloyd is? Anyone raise their hand? Thank you for that. Only one person? 2? All right, before you hit the pillow, read about Earl Lloyd, Chuck Cooper, and Sweetwater Clifton. So I've sculpted one, and I've sculpted the second one's coach, and I'm trying to do the third one, Chuck Cooper at Duquesne. But they're the first 3 black players to step on an NBA court. And Earl Lloyd is at West Virginia State University. Amazing guy, wonderful man, who was actually friends with a couple of the 66 players. And Sweetwater Clifton played for the Knicks. He was the first black player in New York history. And Joe Labchek, who coached at St. John's, who I sculpted there, signed him. So he was in the same position as Don. And John Thompson told me that these gentlemen who did not share this, and Mary would know, Queen Mary today, that they had death threats all the time. John Thompson, who I sculpted at Georgetown, had a death threat every week on his job at Georgetown. This is stuff we don't hear about or know about. But they are men of tremendous character, and they saw the big picture. I'm not sure if I could handle that pressure every day, but they certainly did. The other part that I'd like you to think about when you look at this is that I have a sculpture in front of the CIA headquarters, and it's of Harriet Tubman. And she was a super successful spy during the Civil War. That's why the statue's there. A copy of it is near Syracuse, where she's from, Auburn. I did one of Fannie Lou Hamer. If you don't know her story, it's certainly worth reading. And I sculpted her for her hometown, Ruleville, Mississippi. And I'll continue to do these sculptures that tell powerful, good stories. So from the bottom of my heart, El Paso community, the basketball community, the university here, thank you very much for having me and letting me do this. Thank you so much.
Sir. Thank you, Brian. We can't wait to see what your creativity has wrought, that's for sure. It's been a long journey to bring the statue of the bear here to the Don Haskins Center. And one gentleman, as Brian mentioned, has worked very hard to champion the cause. He has hosted Sports Talk on 600 ESPN El Paso for nearly 30 years. In 2013, he was inducted in the El Paso Athletics Hall of Fame in the media category. And like me, he had the great pleasure over the years to work with Coach Haskins in hosting his radio shows, his weekly radio shows during the course of the season. Please welcome from 600 ESPN El Paso, my colleague, Steve Kaplowitz.
Wow, really incredible that we're out here today. And like a lot of you, I moved here and immediately became indoctrinated into UTEP basketball. We moved to El Paso in 1978. In 1979, we bought season tickets, and the rest is history. So the fact that so many of Coach Haskins' former players, coaches, trainers, and other personnel, and of course the family are here today is just, it's amazing. It's an amazing day, I think, for anyone who has been a part of UTEP basketball over the years. And as has been said earlier on, this was a COVID project of mine. During COVID, we were working from home. We had a lot of time on our hands and tried to come up with things that maybe we wouldn't have as much opportunity to do earlier. And I will never forget the first call I had with Steve Yellen, because I asked Steve about the statue because we had discussed it years earlier. And I asked him about the sculptor, the artist, and he put me on a text thread with Brian Hanlon and started talking to Brian and Steve and trying to make this dream a reality. And after that, it's really been a team effort. You know, for Coach Haskins, it was always about the team, never about the individual. And for the statue that's going to be here now, it's a complete team effort. And it's amazing to think about all the different individuals that have been able to get us all here today. Steve and, of course, Joe Gomez, Jeff Lindbergh. There were many that years ago, around 2009, first started this idea. What I did was I was able to get the idea, bring it back, and help get it rolling. And from there, of course, it wouldn't have been possible without our donors today. Dan and Joanne Longoria, thank you both for making this a reality for everybody here and for the city of El Paso. Of course, Jim Center and Dr. Wilson at UTEP, because without UTEP and them blessing off and giving us this opportunity, we wouldn't have a chance to be here as well. So for UTEP, the Longoria family, and then you think about not just Brian Hanlon, but the other Brian Kanoff. He shot that iconic photo. I think it was around the mid-'80s. Coach was wearing a blazer that I believe had the UTEP crest on it. And it was such an iconic pose, which you'll see here in a moment. It was the perfect pose. So once we were able to get everything in play, then it was just a matter of planning when we would be here today. And think about this weekend, the 83-84 reunion. Some of the greatest teams ever. Started that dynasty of dominance when we were hanging banners from the rafters every year, going to the NCAA tournament, and UTEP basketball becoming once again one of the great mid-major programs in college basketball. Something that I hope we can start celebrating here again soon enough. But in the meantime, when everybody comes to this arena and before they walk in, whether it's for a graduation, a concert, another event, or a basketball game, they'll see the man that built this arena and put this basketball program on the map for good, Don Haskins. Thank you all for being here, and man, what a great moment it's going to be.
Good job, Steve. Thank you. The Haskins family. Oh, the Haskins family. I'd like to acknowledge the members of the Haskins family that are with us here today. Would you please stand and remain standing if you can while I read your name? Dominic Haskins. Okay. Cameron Haskins. Carmen Haskins. J.P. Haskins. Jessica Haskins. Mark Schwartz. Kelly Schwartz. Don's son Brent. Don's son Steve. And the First Lady of UTEP basketball. And I can't tell you how delighted we are, Mary, that you're here with us today. Mary Haskins. Steve, please come up and join me. We'd like to hear your comments.
I forgot my notes. I can't believe this is finally happening. Steve Kaplowitz called me a couple of years ago and started talking about it. Can't thank him enough. Unbelievable. The Gym Center, Dr. Wilson, this wouldn't have happened without you all. And I understand you guys were behind this 110%. I can't thank you enough. Dan and Joanne, thank you so much for this wonderful gift. It's just unbelievable. And Brian Kanoff, great photographer here, and Brian Hanlon, I'm so glad you decided to do this. I know it's going to be great, and I'm just we're overwhelmed. All started in '61, and I think we moved into the dorm. Remember, Mom? You loved the dorm. You didn't want to move. She loved it because it was free meals and everything was done, and it was great. And I think that's where we met. My dad got a hand from his first player, Nolan Richardson, and he says, yeah, this is hi coach. My name's Nolan Richardson. It's like I understand you were the leading scorer on the team last year. Nolan says, yes, sir, I was. I also understand you couldn't guard a telephone pole. So that's the way his career started. The next year, he got the best player in the country to come to UTEP, and it wasn't anything. Well, he did. It was a great recruiting. No, he beat him shooting free throws. That's how he got the best player in the country. So Jim Bad News Barnes came here because he didn't realize he was running into a gym rat. But the '66 team, unbelievable. What they did, but it wouldn't have happened in a lot of cities. El Paso let it happen, and I can't thank my dad stayed here for 38 years for a number of reasons, and he loved El Paso. And he had so many great teams. There's so many great players to think of, and I think his biggest break in his career when he didn't throw away a illegible letter in the late 70s, when he looked at it and he saw it recognized Lee Floyd. It's like Lee Floyd was a great coach in Mississippi, so he took on Tim Floyd, and things were everything changed. The 80s were unbelievable because Tim went out and could recruit, and I don't even know we didn't have a big budget, but what we had was 12,000 people in the arena every night, and that was and was able to recruit and have the greatest era of basketball, and to have the marquee team of that era, the '83-'84 team, that was ranked third in the country at one point. Little El Paso, they finished 8th or 9th in the country. And that was just every game sold out. It was unbelievable. And throughout that, things just kept getting better and better. The players that we got were just on a higher level than we were getting before, and all the way to the end. Where Brandon Wolf, for me, was one of our last great players, and that we had on that team. But in between, it was just unreal what how this city had took it. My dad and loved him, and I know one thing. He loved El Paso right back. Thank you.
Yeah, don't go away. Because the moment we have been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, is here. I would like to invite President Wilson, Dan and Joanne Longoria, Brian Hanlon, Steve Kaplowitz, come on back up. We're going to unveil the bear. Now, do we need to do some preparatory work here? Okay, all right. Did we rehearse this? I will. I will. All right, are we ready? On the count of three, let's get this done. Brian, are we ready? 3, 2, 1, give it a tug. Wow. That is get this. Thank you, everyone. You know, Brian, as I look at this, you absolutely nailed the stance. You absolutely nailed the stance and the face. Those are the two things that strike me first. Anybody that would like to take a photo is more than welcome to do so. If you want to come up and do so a little bit closer, please, you're welcome to do so. Thank you so much for being here today. Hope you enjoyed what will be an unforgettable day for all of us. Go Miners!
Good job as always. Celebration of Don Haskins. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, I can do that.
There you go, guys. All right. My bad. That's nailed to the T.
While you're shooting your photos, once again, we would like to thank Joanne and Dan Longoria for their generosity, and of course, Brian Hanlon for sharing his gifts with us. Please join us back here, right back here, tomorrow at 4 o'clock for a celebration of Coach Haskins, where some of his greatest